How's it going, guys? I'm going to do a quick little overview of the keto diet. It's something that we get a lot of questions about, a lot of searches for on our site still. It got popular a few years ago, probably like 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still pretty popular now. I think it's kind of dying out a little bit. But I wanted to do kind of a general overview. I feel like I've talked about it too much on this channel, but it is pretty prevalent in the questions that we get, the customers that come in. A lot of people do it. I'm sure you've heard about it. So I'm going to give you guys basically a rundown on as much information as I can without getting too deep into it and making it all confusing. I'm going to give you guys the basic points. And a lot of times the things that I hear people come in and ask about, and it seems like these are pretty common questions, are things that people usually get wrong with it. So to start, what's the keto diet? A keto diet is a ketogenic diet, is a diet where you're trying to put your body in a state of ketosis in which your body is running off of ketones that your body produces by taking fat, running it through your liver, and then that's how you get ketones. And then your body can use ketones as energy. Normally, if you're eating like a standard American diet, you're probably running off of glucose. You're probably never really running off of ketones. So why would that be beneficial? The thought process is that if you just eliminate carbs and glucose and you just run off of your fat stores, it's going to be easier to lose weight. There are some pros and cons to it. It could be easier for a lot of people to lose weight. At the end of the day, it comes down to calories in over calories out. But the fact that you're not eating carbs and you're eating more meat, you're eating more fat, you're probably going to be satiated a little longer too. So you won't be as hungry. So the whole goal of it is to completely eliminate your body running off of glucose. So you're just always running off of your fat stores or the food that you just ate. So that's kind of a common misconception. People will think that if you're in ketosis, then your body is constantly burning its fat. It's not really true, because if you say you haven't eaten anything in 2 days, your body's going to be running off of its fat stores. But if you eat some beef, a steak, whatever, then your body's going to be using that food as energy, and it's going to stop burning your body fat. So if you're constantly eating food all day long, or you're eating too much food, you're not going to be burning your body fat. You're going to be burning the food that you just ate. So people a common thing that I see I think that the biggest problem is people don't understand what carbs are. So you have to know that there are 3 macronutrients. There's proteins, fats, and carbs. Protein, you just have to look these things up basically. It's going to be meat, fish, eggs. You're going to get it from some vegetables like beans and stuff. Fat is usually dairy. It's going to be in a lot of meats. I don't think it's in many plants. I guess like olives, right? Some seed type stuff, you're going to get oils from that. And then carbs are going to be from stuff like potatoes, sweet potatoes. I think some squashes have it. A lot of vegetables have it for sure, have carbs for sure. And then things like grain, rice, bread, tortillas, all of that stuff. Those are all going to be very heavy in carbs. So once you kind of know what every food is and where these macronutrients come from and what they are, you can then kind of start breaking down your diet. A lot of people come in and they're like, yeah, I'm doing keto. And then they just tell me they're eating like sandwiches. It's like, no, you're not doing anything. What you would have to do is start slowly eliminating the stuff from your diet. Because chances are, if you want to do a keto diet and you jump right into it and just cut everything out, you're not going to last very long. The people who do it very successfully seem to be the ones that item by item, they'll stop eating rice, they'll stop eating tortillas, they'll stop eating bread, they'll start replacing it with lettuce wraps, they'll start replacing it with cauliflower rice, stuff like that. So you want to kind of like start eliminating all the carbs from your diet, and you want to keep your protein pretty high too. And then once you eliminate your carbs and you have a good amount of protein, you're going to replace the rest of your calories with fat. And when people hear that, they're like, oh, isn't fat bad? Not really. It depends what fats you get. You don't want to just go to McDonald's and get their burger patties and eat those all day, because that's probably really bad. But you can eat fat and it not be totally detrimental. The biggest negatives that you get from fat is when you eat fat and carbs together, because that causes a lot of inflammation. If you just kind of separate your protein and your fat and you eat those together, you don't really get this big inflammation spike, which is kind of a big thing that people want to do keto for too, so avoid inflammation. So fats aren't really the worst thing in the world. They're actually very necessary for your hormone production, your hormone management. A lot of your metabolic processes you need fat for. So a common, and this is a con, I would say, to the keto diet. People would say, don't you need carbs for energy or to work out? Yes and no. obviously people do keto very strictly and they work out and they're in great shape. Is it as easy to build muscle? I would say no, because when you have carbs, you have glycogen stores. Glycogen is stored in your muscle. And what glycogen is it's, if you eat carbs, it turns into glucose. Glucose is basically blood sugar. If you have too much blood sugar, it's got to get stored somewhere. So it'll get stored in your muscles as glycogen and also in your liver as glycogen. So if you hear glucose and glycogen, that's what it is. Glycogen is just stored glucose. So if you have stored glucose in your muscles, that is a very quick, fast, easy form of energy for you to work out. It also gives you a better pump too, because your muscles hold more water when they're filled with glycogen. So I think it actually is. You can lift more. You can have a little bit more endurance. Carbs are better for working out. If you're just trying to cut down and you're not too concerned about bodybuilding or athletic performance, it's not going to be that big of a deal. What should you eat? Meat, dark green vegetables. You could do some dairy. People try to cut out dairy because a lot of times people are lactose intolerant. But if you do vegetables that aren't like potatoes or very starchy, you can do pretty much all the vegetables you want, all the meat you want. It's pretty awesome. I mean, within your caloric restrictions, because obviously if you eat too much meat, you're still going to gain weight. But meat, eggs, fish, the right vegetables, and then you could season everything. You could do salt. You can eat all this good stuff. You just have to cut back on the carbs and the sugar. And that being said, there's a lot of food out there that might be a little deceptive or might be in your favor. Because if you are trying to look at the back of a label, you'll see total carbohydrates, let's say it says 10. Underneath that, there'll be 5 fiber maybe. So what that means is you take the fiber, you subtract it from the total carbohydrates, and you get 5 net carbs. Those are the carbs your body's actually going to process because the fiber just kind of goes right through you. So that's what net carbs are. So if you hear net carbs, it's going to be the carbs your body's actually using. So if you look on some keto desserts or low sugar desserts, you might see 20 carbs, and then you'll see 18 of them are sugar alcohols. That would mean that you have 2 net carbs, but it also depends what the sugar alcohols are. So if it's like erythritol, you could cancel those out. If it's sucralose, you could cancel those out. If it's maltodextrin, that's actually pretty much just as bad as sugar. It's just a sugar alcohol, but it acts just like sugar. So that's not good. So what I recommend, I'm not going to go through them all, but look up a list of good sugar alcohols and bad sugar alcohols. So when you're looking at the back of labels, you'll know what you should and shouldn't be eating. Because they could say, oh, there's only 2 net carbs, but if all the sugar alcohols are maltodextrin or maltitol, it's just as bad as sugar. And then as far as what supplements do you need, a lot of supplements say keto on them. A lot of times you don't need things that are labeled as keto. What you might want to do is get some MCT oil, some coconut oil, maybe a good protein powder. You could still do your amino acids. You could do your nootropics. You could do your stimulants. You could do all that stuff. You just want to avoid proteins that have a lot of carbs. You want to avoid mass gainers because those are usually pretty heavy in carbs. And just take a look at all the nutrition labels. Just make sure there's no carbs. It's only protein or it's only amino acids. A lot of times things will be labeled keto and it's just a regular product, and then they upcharge you a little bit on it. I don't really know why they do that. Obviously, it's just marketing, but the goal of keto is to kind of just eliminate stuff, not add a bunch of stuff on. So you don't have to buy a bunch of things to do keto. You just have to adjust the way you eat. It's probably not good for someone who's trying to sell supplements to say, but, trying to be honest here. And then some of the other downsides, I think a lot of people will go through like the Keto Flu, which is what you may have read online, which is where as your body adapts to getting rid of carbs, you're basically like withdrawing a little bit from carbs. So you're going to feel like crap for like 2 to 3 days. I never got that ever. Some people never do. A lot of people do. What you can do is you could supplement it with some electrolytes and minerals, and that usually alleviates some of the symptoms. I think that's what I've read. Again, I've never experienced it, so I don't really know. And then another downside is that it is pretty hard to do long term. A lot of people will do it long term, and they have no issues with it. But if you're like any normal person, if you're going to go out, you're going to experience a lot of people that are, you're eating dinner with them. It's just kind of a hard thing to keep up with for a very long time. If you can, that's awesome. There's really no crazy downsides to it, but you just have to know that not many people do it for the rest of their lives. So I think that's about it. I had some bullet points here I wanted to make sure I covered. I think I got anything. If I missed anything, if you have any specific questions that you want me to answer, I'd be happy to help. I did keto pretty strictly for about a year and a half, stopped for a little bit, went back on. Now I just kind of do low carb. I don't really do strict keto, but if you have any questions, I feel like I'm pretty well versed in it. I did a lot of research on it before I started doing it, so I think I know a lot about it. If you have any questions, please leave them below and I would be happy to help. All right, thanks.